Erased is a manga series by Kei Sanabe. Can I pronounce Japanese names correctly? Maybe. It is a thriller murder mystery with a slight supernatural twist, and it's only 12 episodes, so go watch it right now and come back as I'm going to spoil the crap out of the show. I'll give you a warning when I get into big spoilers, so you can just keep watching until then. Hey everyone, I'm Wheeze, and this is my channel, KBW. Today I'm talking about Erased, or listen to me sob as I talk about how much I love this story and break down what makes it so good. Also, I'm going to talk about the differences between the anime and the manga. Please like and subscribe. The story of Erased starts with a man named Satoru who lives a normal life in Japan with the goal of becoming a manga artist. But he can't get in touch with his deep emotions, so his stories always fall flat and get rejected. Currently, he works as a pizza delivery man and lives in a small apartment. Technically, his stories don't always get rejected. He was published once, but it was just a small stuff, whatever, it doesn't matter. His life is pretty normal except for the strange deja vu ability where he suddenly gets transported to the past to find the thing out of place to prevent some tragedy from occurring. Despite trying to act apathetic toward the people around him, he always goes out of his way to help whoever was in trouble and usually ends up hurting himself in the process. After getting hospitalized from an accident involving this ability, revival as he calls it, his mother comes to live with him, much to his annoyance. Then, after he has a revival in the parking lot of his store and asks his mother to help in finding whatever was out of place, she noticed a man leading a young girl to his car, but he left her behind as soon as Satoru's mother's locked eyes with him. She knew this man from somewhere but couldn't place it. Later, Satoru finds his mother stabbed in the apartment. He finds himself now framed for the murder, and he is taken away for a crime he didn't commit. He calls for a revival to work once more, and it does, but this time sends him back to middle school as a middle schooler in the same time frame of when a series of serial killings happened to children in this town, even involving some of Satoru's own friends. Meaning now the murder of his mother can only be prevented by stopping the murders of several young children in his class, which involves becoming friends with a young girl who is closed off and being abused by her mother. Interested yet? If not, it's because I explained this absolutely horribly, because this show is fantastic. If you like murder mysteries, a sweet story of helping a girl overcome domestic abuse, and just fantastically written characters, you'll love Erased. Although I'm about to talk about how this is a little bit less of a murder mystery and more of a sweet story of a girl overcoming domestic abuse and fantastically written characters. But I'll get into that later. I'm laughing because what I said was overly wordy, not because of the girl overcoming domestic abuse. I'm sick of recapping now. I'm getting into big spoilers. The main purpose of this video is to compare the manga with the anime, and the main differences is with the ending, so big spoiler stuff here. Firstly? Why did I say firstly? If you have just paused this video, binged the anime, and then came back as I asked you to, you are my ideal viewer. Comment something like, I'm your ideal viewer, and I'll reply with something like, I love you. Anyway, if you've seen Erased either before or because of this video, you might be thinking, Wheeze, this show isn't that good. The beginning is awesome, but the ending kinda sucks. And before I would say, screw you, I like the ending. It's not perfection, but it didn't ruin the series for me. The first 3/4 of the show are 10 out of 10. However, with reading the manga now, I still think pretty much the same way, but I also know that the ending is rushed and ruins one of the best parts of the story, but I'll get to that later. First, the beginning. The anime left out quite a lot of content that shows more of Satoru's character. There's an extra time revival happens before he goes back to being a kid for the first time, and a lot of flashbacks that show more of how he was as a kid. Basically every character is more fleshed out in the manga, including the main two, Keo and Satoru, who were given the most focus in the anime. The biggest change was after the coma, however. The anime was rushed with getting only 12 episodes when it really could have used 15 to 20. There was a lot cut out of the story, and though it does end basically the same with Satoru catching the killer alive and him meeting with Airi, A-I-R-I, at the end and saving all the children he knew as a child, the way it goes about the ending is so much better in the manga. It makes sense why people were disappointed with the ending of the anime. Now, this show has somewhat of a bad reputation and quite a few criticism I want to go over. Some are because of the anime, others are just people's personal preferences, I think. So a lot of people noticed Erased. What was I even trying to say here? I think it was a big disappointment because when it came out, there was a lot of hype around it from what I've heard. And people were like, this is one of the best anime ever, but then the ending was just kind of disappointing, so people now are like more down on it than they probably should be, just because the hype was so high. Whereas if this was like some no name, nobody ever heard of it, and then you just watched it, you'd just be like, wow, this is really, really good. Why isn't more people talking about this? So I think some of like the marketing and everything around it and the hype around it killed some of its reputation. It's kind of interesting. First, the biggest criticism I've seen is that the killer was obvious and the only one who could have done it. For me, this didn't bother me at all because the murder mystery was the part I cared least about in the show. This was so much more about character growth than a simple whodunit. The emotional climaxes outweighed the hollow shock factor of you didn't expect this guy. And I think a lot of people miss that. I do understand not wanting a story predictable, and you know, it's bad storytelling to have it where everyone knows right at the beginning who the killer is, but saying a race sucks because it's just a murder mystery and the mystery was too obvious is not fair to what the story was trying to accomplish. The stuff with KO, the character interactions, and just Satoru's overall journey of starting out not being able to be in touch with his emotions because of killings that happened when he was a child, and then the ending of the story, especially in the manga, where you get to see him being a successful manga artist. I don't remember if they covered that in the anime. How he now can get in touch with his emotions because he finally dealt with the issues. And he also had to become a better person by talking to KO, something he never would have done because he's more of an introvert and closed off person, but now he knows he has to prevent her murder, which is really fantastic. Second, the rushed ending. This is a totally fair criticism for the anime and completely fixed in the manga. There is a lot more plot and backstory for the characters. The ending is perfectly paced in the manga in my opinion. I'm not going to spoil it here because I want you to read the manga, but it is much longer and much, much better. So if that's your issue, just read the manga. The manga is really good. And the last criticism I see is that Satoru and Ko didn't get together. This is addressed very clearly in the manga. I'm not so sure about the anime. It's been a while since I saw the anime. I probably should have watched it before doing this video, but I don't have enough time. Satoru did not have a romantic connection to Ko. There was a few times he blushed or whatever, but it's because he held her hands or their faces got close to each other. That's just natural reactions to those circumstances for someone that age. Even in everything they did together, I always thought Satoru was more pretending to have a crush on her so that he could save her. It was the easiest way to explain why he hung around her constantly. Thematically, Satoru and Ko's relationship wouldn't have worked. Satoru worked tirelessly to save Ko from an abusive relationship and the death at the hands of a killer. He wanted her to be free to live her life. Satoru wouldn't have succeeded if the girl then became a slave to Satoru, pausing her life for 15 years waiting for him to wake up. This is addressed in the manga also. It's a thing where it's not realistic, and I like the cruel reality of she had to move on without him, and he had to go on without her, you know? They didn't even know if he was going to wake up, so it would have been kind of ridiculous for her to never move past that, like, you know, couple weeks that they hung out together. I sound so heartless. Most don't think about how Ko marries Hiromi? I took Japanese class and I still can't even pronounce it. Hiromi, who was another victim in Satoru's original life. Hiromi, who Satoru actually felt like he could have saved at the beginning of the story. In the manga, he's like, I could have saved her, and he cries to his mother about it. Could have saved him, not her. It's her in the anime because he's talking about Ko. But it's not actually Ko. It's Hiromi. This is a change from the manga. Hiromi was actually his friend, so he cared about Hiromi. That they kind of like drifted apart and then Hiromi was killed from being alone, whereas Ko was just nobody even talked to her. She didn't have any friends, and Satoru didn't really care about her until he had to save her life. Now I'm making Satoru sound heartless. So the thing is that he saved Hiromi and Ko. So Satoru is an absolute hero, which is the theme used a lot from the superhero that Satoru likes, that he wants to be a hero. He saved both of their lives and gave them a happy life afterwards, making him like the biggest hero because he not only saved their lives, he actually made their lives better afterwards because he saved both of them. It's actually a beautiful ending for their characters that doesn't get messy with the implications of a 30-year-old man in a child's body falling in love with a middle school girl. Now, I glossed over a lot of the points of how much better the manga is to the anime. I don't think it was laziness or bad storytelling on the writers or the directors of the anime. I think it was time constraints and they did the best they could. I think it was actually quite a good job. However, the manga is just leagues better because of the extra time and the much better ending. But the main difference between the anime and the manga that made me fall in love with the original story was the best part of the manga and the worst part of the anime. Yasuhiro Sensei. Saying it was the best part is a little of an exaggeration. The best part is the KO arc with Satoru's second return to being a child, but Yasuhiro Sensei has quickly become one of my favorite antagonists in anime. His backstory and motivation are super interesting and remind me a lot of Yoshikage Kira from JoJo Part 4, who was also a very fantastic antagonist serial killer. Yashiro's development is very little in the anime, but in the manga, we get backstory, we get internal monologues from him. It's fantastic. Obviously, he's a messed up person. He had some issues in his childhood, but they were nothing that would directly lead him to become a serial killer. Ultimately, Yashiro's philosophy is that everyone has something they want, a desire during their life, that they try to fill that hole in their heart, as he says. This philosophy is mostly true, with a lot of the good characters echoing the exact words. However, with a much more wholesome sentiment, usually referring to stopping the serial killer. Yashiro wants enjoyment in his life. He wants excitement. He wants the feeling of accomplishment, but he gets this through killing, and he is smart enough to never have any issues giving the police a suspect with enough evidence that the cases are closed quickly, with no worries he'd be caught, until Satoru came along, and somehow predicted everything he was going to do. This fascinated Yashiro to the point of becoming obsessed with Satoru. Not only was Satoru stopping him from killing others, he couldn't even kill Satoru himself. Just like the one hamster that survived when he drowned all of its siblings, he got a special feeling watching Satoru struggle for his life, and wanted to feel it again. Ultimately, Yashiro wanted enjoyment and pleasure in life, but found it in the most sick and despicable way. That is why I find him to be such an amazing antagonist. Yashiro is undoubtedly an evil man, but he is also a fantastically written character with clear motives that are just not as well portrayed in the anime adaptation. There's so much that's better in the manga, and I mostly just made this video to spread awareness that Erased is really good, especially the manga. Like, most people don't really talk about it, even in the manga area, just because of the anime adaptation. But the manga is like super, super good. It's really, really good. It's easily one of my favorite manga, even though I haven't read that much. And I highly recommend checking out the manga. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. You can find me at KBWAuthor. I capitalize KBW and A in KBWAuthor. I don't know if that'll help you find me, or if you'll find me either way. I don't know. I don't know why I capitalized that. Maybe I had to. I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't know why I'm here making YouTube videos. But check me out there. I want to keep making videos. This is only like my second video, so I still don't know what I'm doing. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope I'm entertaining. Janya.